Okay, we are going to read The Open Road, and as we read, we're going to make some annotations. I will go ahead and start with the first couple annotations, and then I will let you guys finish them. Here we go. The first automobiles appeared in the 1890s. Powered by electric motors instead of horses, they were called horseless carriages. At that time, there were only 144 miles of paved roads in the nation. When people went for a drive, cars bounced along dirt tracks. Dust blew into their eyes, and mud splattered their clothes. So if I'm going to annotate this, I need to find something that's important in this. So I'm going to put a P1 for paragraph 1. So that way when I have to go put my information in later, I'll be able to remember where I found it. So let's see. The first automobiles appeared in the 1890s. So that's probably important, right? So first automobiles appeared in the 1890s. These were called, let's see, they were called horseless carriages. Carriages. Always use your sounds. But I also knew how to spell it because I looked right here. Okay, so they were called horseless carriages because remember before they had carriages that horses would pull. But now that the horse isn't needed anymore because they have an electric motor, they're able to have a car, which is similar to the horse and carriage, but different because it doesn't rely on anything but an engine. So now it says that there's only 144 paved roads in the nation. So think about that. In the whole entire nation, the United States, in this whole nation, 144 miles of paved roads. 144 miles is not going to take you very far. Not far at all. Maybe, I don't know, maybe one of you guys can look that up about how far it would be from San Diego to go 144 miles. But I can tell you right now, it's not very far. So paved roads means like an actual road that we drive on, like a highway, or like the roads in the streets. So what they had to drive on were rocks and dirt and things like that. So now they have the cars, but they don't have the roads. So I think I'm going to annotate that as well. So only 144 miles of paved roads. Now it says here, when people went for a drive, cars bounced along the dirt tracks, dust blew into their eyes, and mud splattered on their clothes. I mean, it's not that important, not something that is like super important that I'm going to need later, but I mean, because I can obviously figure that out. If there isn't very many paved roads, they're obviously going to have to be driving on dirt. So now I'm going to put P2. It's going to be for my paragraph 2. Not only were there few paved roads in those days, but there were no gas stations or road maps. The new motor cars broke down often. For this reason, people did not go far. The first cars were also extremely expensive. Few people could afford them, so there was little reason for the country to build interstate highways. For many, horse-drawn carriages or trains were still the best way to travel. Well, think about that. If there is a new car out or a new way of transportation, everybody wants it, but everybody can't have it because obviously it's going to be very, very expensive. The reason for that is because there's not much demand. And the reason there's not much demand is because it's new. Nobody knows what it is. So when people start to want it more and more, then they start to make more and more. And then as they make more and more and more, it becomes cheaper for everyone to buy. Think about the first iPhone. When the first iPhone came out, it was very, very, very expensive. And it was very hard to get because it was new. Nobody really knew much about it. So they didn't produce a whole lot. But as people started to use the iPhone and really like the iPhone, the demand became more. So when the demand is high, that means that the supply needs to increase so that it can service everybody who wants what they're making. So when the supply is low, the cost is higher because there's not a lot to go around. But when there's a lot of something, then the price goes down. So the price of an iPhone was really, really expensive when they first came out. But now they're a lot more reasonably priced. They're still expensive, but not like they were in the very beginning. This is the same for these cars. In the beginning, they were super expensive because it was like a brand new invention, but a lot of people couldn't afford that. So they stuck with the horse and carriage like they had, and they made do with that. Okay, so what's important in this paragraph? So in paragraph 2, let's see. Not only were there few paved roads, so not only did they not have that, they also didn't have the gas stations, and they don't have road maps. Why are road maps important? Well, I don't think they had Siri back then. They definitely didn't have navigation systems. So they had to rely on a map to know how to get to where they were going, especially if they were going to travel far. So there weren't these things for them yet. None of this had been created. And gas stations were being created, but very slowly because again, there wasn't a lot of cars. So there's no reason to have a lot of gas stations if there aren't a lot of cars. And also it was new. So when you have something new, a lot of times they say don't buy the first one of something because it has to go through a lot of problems first. So it's like making a mistake. You make mistakes until you fix it. It gets better and better and better. And with a car, it was still new. People didn't know a whole lot about them. So there were a lot of modifications that they had to make to these cars before they became really reliable. Um, So, what information do I feel is important in this? So, maybe there were the supply. So, we can say the supply, which were the motor cars were low, right? And because they were low, the price was high. So, they didn't have a lot, so the price was really high. Many couldn't afford them. Many people couldn't afford motor cars, so they stuck with the horse and carriage or train. Period. Now, see how I have these two words that have red under them? It doesn't matter how young or old you are, guys. You're always going to make little typos. So just right click, find the word, click right here, right click, find the word, voila. Okay, what else in this was important? They broke down a lot because the motor cars were new, they were not reliable. Okay, so because they're not reliable, oh, didn't they say there was no maps? There were very few gas stations and no road maps. That's important because if there's no road maps, it's going to be really hard to get around. Then in 1908, Henry Ford introduced the Model T automobile. Unlike those before it, this car was affordable. Because it didn't cost much, many people bought it. As more people owned cars, the need for paved roads, gas stations, and new maps increased. As a result, the Model T helped change transportation. So I'm going to go down here and put P3. Whoops. That was even though the paragraph is small, it had a lot of really good information in it, right? So now we know an affordable car was made. And because now the demand is high, there is more need for supply. The demand is the people wanting the car. So because there's so many people that want it, they make a lot, right? So the demand is high. Now that there is a lot of supply, the price is cheaper, is more affordable. I want to use more academic language than just like easy words. I want to use words that make me sound like I really know what I'm talking about. And that's funny, you can use just a few little words and it changes the way it sounds. So, this is really, I mean, if we were to sit here and say what kind of text structure so far in this story or this article is, what would you think it is? Would you think it's describing something? I mean, it kind of is describing, but I think a few of you guys are saying, you know what, this is kind of a cause and effect. Well, is it cause and effect? What do you think? Cause and effect would be there was a need for something, so this happens. If, then this. If this happens, then this happens. So there was a car, it was made, which was great, but it was not affordable. So the need became higher, so the cars were made. So because of this, this happened. But it can also be about problem solution, because if you think about it, the problem is they didn't have gas stations, road maps, paved roads, highways, things like that. And because um, of this Model T car, they were able to get all of those things or create all of those things because there was a need for it. So it's kind of a combination of cause and effect and problem solution. So I'm going to put right here, let's see, we can put gas station. Well, you know what? Those are little things. We can say the Model T car helped change transportation. And how did it help change transportation? Think about it. There was a car now that was affordable. People could afford it, so they purchased it. And then because they purchased it, now there's paved roads, there's gas stations, there's road maps. So things started to evolve. They went from not having any of that to kind of slowly having more and more and more to getting to where now their major mode of transportation is going to be this car. So I'm going to make a note here to put cause and effect, problem, solution. But I'm going to put a question mark by problem solution because problem solution, it wasn't really a problem until there was a car. So again, that could be cause and effect because the car is here. Now we need these. So the cause and effect help solve the problem solution. I don't know. I'm going to leave that there to think about it. So this is all for this page. I'm going to go ahead and make a video for the second page. The second page, I'm not going to annotate for you. I want you guys to annotate your ideas, okay? And then when we're done, you're going to go to this page, and right here, I'm going to pick out the most important details that I wrote here. And I'm going to list them here. So maybe I would put like P1. I know what I wrote for P1. Let's go check. I wrote first automobiles appeared in the 1890s. They were called horseless carriages. Only 144 miles of paved roads. What's the most important piece? What are the most important pieces of that? So maybe I could put paragraph 1 spoke about 1890 was 1890 is when the first automobile was introduced. There were very few paved highways or paved roads, let's say. Okay, that's all I'm going to put for paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, maybe in paragraph 2, I can take out some information such as supply was low. Okay, so the prices were high. They weren't dependable. Okay, so if I go here, back down here for paragraph 2, whoops, I can say the automobiles were very expensive and not many people could afford them. The cars were very new, so they were not very reliable. Period. So see how I took the information that I got here and I simplified it and I put it down here. So let's go do the very last one and then you guys are going to do the second page. E3. This says an affordable car was made. The demand is high, so there was more need for supply. Now there is a lot of supply. The price of the car is more affordable. So I would say in paragraph 3, basically, they were saying that the Model T helped change. Let me go back and check the word on that. Helped change transportation. This car was more affordable, which made it easier for people to purchase because there were so many cars now. There was a need for more paved roads, gas stations, paved roads, and okay. Okay, so now you guys are going to do paragraph 4. So now I'm just going to continue this video. I'm not going to stop it. So now I'm going to read you guys paragraphs 4, 5, and 6, and then I want you guys to go back. I want you also to look at the bottom. Okay, so 1908, the Model T car. Model T are mass produced, so that means a lot of them were made, not just a few, a lot. 1916, Congress passes the Federal Aid Read Act. I have to make this bigger. Miss Boltman's eyes are not very good. Okay, let's go down here. Congress passes the Federal Aid Read Act, and in 1926, Route 66 is commissioned. Okay, so I'm assuming we're going to hear more about that in these next few paragraphs. In 1937, Route 66 is finished. In 1956, Federal Aid Highway Acts of 1956 establishes National Interstate Highway System. In 1982, Interstate Highway System is complete. That's not that long ago, you guys, if you really think about it. So Route 66 is actually, it's the name of a route, like a stretch of highway. And those of you who watch Cars probably know and have heard of Route 66. All right, let's go ahead and finish this up. People with cars wanted to go places. They wanted to hit the open road and explore America. However, to do so, they needed better roads. So in 1916, Congress passed the Federal Aid Road Act. Oh, I'm sorry, that said road, not read. The Federal Aid Road Act. It made funds available to help states build two-lane interstate highways. Workers would build the new roads, creating new jobs. So look at that. Again, because they had the cars, they needed better roads, and because they needed better roads, that means they need that created jobs, which help people. So do you see how it's kind of a ripple effect? Because of this, then you need this. Because of that, you need that. So I'm going to go more on the cause and effect. Route 66 was one of the first good roads. In the 1920s, it linked small towns and big cities from Chicago to Los Angeles. It stretched about 3,850 kilometers, which is 2,400 miles. Remember, in the very beginning, it started off with 144 miles. Now we're at 2,400 miles. That's across two-thirds of the country. Local merchants built gas stations, motels, all-night diners beside the highways. Some built special attractions for tourists. People came to see the sights. Others drove west to California seeking a better life. And by the 1930s, truckers began transporting goods across the country. On Route 66, many of these travelers bought gas and food and stayed in the motels along the highway. Route 66 became the perfect open road. So now look, the economy is getting better because all of these people now are working, they need to travel, it's attracting tourists. And with that being said, there's going to be gas stations that are used more, there's going to be restaurants that are going to be used more, motels. So you can see the economy is really being built up. So at one time it was a bunch of dirt, and now they've created this road that gave jobs and really a way for people to see the whole United States. Today, not much is left on Route 66. Other highways are bigger and faster, but travelers can still find road signs that show where America's oldest highway once stretched. So that's pretty neat. That was, um, you know, this was the very first one. So, as time goes on, we go further. We have different kinds of cars. We have, different places we need to go. So, things get old and new things become there. So this road is not as used. I'm sorry, this road is not used as much anymore, but because of this road, it really started the whole revolution of roads and highways. So that was really interesting. So what I want you guys to do is go in and put P4. I want you to tell me something. Okay, and then down here, oops, P5, and then, actually, I'm going to write this, but then I'm going to delete it because I want you guys to, because if you try and write after that, it's going to push it down. But then maybe P6 here, okay? And once you're done writing in there, you're going to take what you learned and you're going to summarize it and make it even shorter and put it here. Okay, remember using complete sentences. When you're done with that, you're going to come up with the main idea. What was the point of this text? Why did we read it? What was it trying to teach us or tell us? Okay, and at the bottom it says, this question has two parts. First answer part A and then answer part B. Usually, like I tell my students, if there's a part A and a part B, usually they're going to want you to answer part A and part B will be something that pertains to part A. So always know that when you see a part A and a part B, they usually go together somehow. So part A says, what is the main idea of this passage? And it gives you four options. And part B says, which sentence from the passage supports the main idea from part A? So, as you can see, this is what is it, and this is why do you think that? And that is all for this section. If you need help, I am available. from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in my office hours. So please feel free to stop by.